we get to our speaker. We've been doing enough business. And Roseanne Gillisano's been a member of Pensters for quite a while. 5 years? 5 years. And she is a ghostwriter. She has taught ghostwriting, she has taught memoir writing through Diesel, isn't it? And, yeah, and other things. And she's also an author. She's in this, well, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm wasting time. I'll let her tell you. But she is here to talk about ghostwriting. And I'm not going to read this, Roseanne.
No,
because it'll be a lot of time. So I'm going to let you just come up and,
okay.
and do your thing. All right, Roseanne Gillisano.
I have an outline here because, like most of you, I'm sure you can't remember why you went from one room to the other, so I do need my reminders. But first of all, my experience with ghostwriting. I had been teaching this memoir writing class for a little while, back up in Illinois. And of course, when you teach at a park district or a library, they usually send out some publicity. And my very first client, which I was not even thinking about, was a gentleman who was 95 years old. He called me on the phone and said, I can't make it to your class, but I would like to write my story, but I really don't feel comfortable doing that. Could you write it for me? Okay, so I didn't have a clue what to charge him or how to go about this, but we figured it all out together. And this is the book that ended up being published, which he wanted a hardback book because it was for his family and friends. And that was before print on demand, so I had to find a source that would print 25 copies, and because that's all he wanted. So I was doing one of my life stories presentations, and another lady came up to me and said, I never know what to get my mother-in-law for her birthday. I want you to come and meet with her and write her story. So that was my second client. The third client was a gentleman who had an intense story to tell, and he said he found me on the internet. Great, I said, where? Oh, I don't know, I just clicked around and, you popped up somewhere. So I have no idea how to make that connection. A personal referral was a gentleman who was a co-founder of Ticketmaster, and he also started the community of Scottsdale, Arizona when it was just flat desert. So he started a foundation down in Cabo San Lucas, and I flew down there to meet with him for a week. What a hard job that was. And I wrote what I consider to be my best biography, and his board of directors eventually decided not to spend the money to publish it. So that never made it up. Another
paid, right?
Pardon?
You still got paid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's number one on my list of things to do. Another person who found me on the internet was a corporate 50th anniversary story of Sonitrol Corporation, which makes alarm systems. They wanted a 50th anniversary book. She had a team put together. The team was kind of a disaster and didn't know what they were doing, and she called me in to whip that project into shape, and I did some writing for that book as well. So that was a good gig. But again, where'd you find me on the internet? I don't know, I was just clicking around. You know how that happens. You get referred to this link and that link, and you really don't know where the person came from. I did teach a couple of ESOL classes, and the husband of my next client was in one of my classes and said, my wife really has a story to tell, and she's been reluctant to tell it, doesn't know how to get it out. Could you help her? So that was a local lady. And that's this book. And then she referred me to someone else. So that's how it kind of works, the networking thing. Another local lady whose story I told who ended up as this book. So you're welcome to come up later and look at some of these. Sometimes it's a heavy edit. The person really isn't a writer and wants to do the writing, him or herself, gets it out there, but really needs a lot of help putting it together. And that was this fellow who was a snowbird. I did one program at the Orange Beach Library about 4 years ago now. He was a snowbird in my class, and a year later, he came back to town doing his snowbirding thing and called me and said, could you help me with my story? Could you edit it? Which I did, and that was almost a rewrite. So that was another way of doing this. That's my experience with ghostwriting. The first book was a learning curve, and I hope to give you a few hints so that maybe you can avoid the learning curve. A little ghostwriting history. The first ghostwriters were Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, according to this lovely book, which I'm going to give you the title of and recommend to you. I thought that was interesting because, of course, they didn't write it for a while afterwards. Another interesting ghostwriting situation was the author of Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, and the Bobbsey Twins, all those wonderful little books, we remember it from our childhood. He actually had a Stratmeyer, his name was Edward Stratmeyer. He had a syndicate, and he put a call out for ghostwriters. And one of his contract recommendations, or one of his contract requirements was that they remain anonymous and not ever tell that they wrote these books. He would send them a story idea and an outline. They would write the book, send it to him. He would pay them $125. Now, of course, he eventually passed away, and about 1980, the truth came out in a court case, and a lady by the name of Carolyn Keene, which kind of sounds familiar, which wasn't her real name, that was a pen name, but she finally got to say, I wrote these books, so she's now on the Nancy Drew books. Her real name is Mildred Benson, and she was a newspaper columnist until she was 96 years old. So, ghostwriting, getting started. The first thing you need to do is get an internet presence. You need to get your Facebook page, not your personal page, but you need to get a separate page about your ghostwriting and your writing. A website is another thing you need to set up. Get some specific ghostwriting business cards so that if anyone's interested, or might be interested, or maybe I have a friend, a mother-in-law, a sister, whatever, who's interested, you got a card to give them. There are freelance writer sites out there. I will give you a handout that's going to have some of this information on there. A freelance site means you register with the site, you put on a profile and some information about yourself, and then they post jobs and you apply for them. The two that I'm on are called guru.com, G-U-R-U.com, and freelanced, past tense, freelanced.com. There are more out there, and they're on my handout. Okay, now you've gotten that out there, and someone contacts you. Like I got this phone call from this little gentleman I was talking about. Gee, what do I do now? So, schedule a face-to-face meeting if that's possible. If it's a local person, I always like to write about a local person unless they want to fly me to Cabo San Lucas, which is okay too. So schedule a face-to-face meeting if it's at all possible. Let them tell you about their project and what their expectations are. Who is their target market? Are they writing this for family and friends? Or are they writing it because they think they have a story to tell that will help others? Or are they writing it because, they think it's going to hit the bestseller list? Bring samples of your writing to this meeting so that they can get an idea of the way you write. Find out the scope of the project. the number of pages they're expecting, how long the book's going to be. The average client is not going to know about word count. They might be more familiar with page count. And their time frame. Do they want it out in 2 months? Do they want it out next year? How much time do you have to finish the project? It takes a while because you have to meet with them, get them to tell you their stories. Of course, now we get to the subject of price and payment schedule. So that has to be discussed at this meeting. If it is not right for you, don't be afraid to say so. I had a meeting quite recently with a lady, and the more she told me, the more I realized I wasn't going to be able to do her project justice. And I called her and said, I can't do this for you. If they're not a good match and tell you so, and they don't think you're a good match for them, don't get hurt feelings about it. It's a very personal thing to write your own story. So, even if they say, I don't think you're going to work out, you part with a smile because they might refer somebody else. Now, show them your written agreement. I know there's a couple lawyers in the room, and when you see my written agreement, you're going to have a heart attack. But it's very casual. I wrote down on one page, and it's attached to the handout. I'm not by any means recommending my agreement, but I wrote down on one page my expectations from them, what they can expect from me, a payment schedule, and a couple other items that and then I get their signature on it, I sign it, and so we have something to refer to in case things go wrong. So far, they never have, so. All right, now they say, you're hired. What's the next thing you're going to do? Schedule your weekly meetings. For each meeting, give your client a rough outline about what you're going to cover at that meeting. If they don't have an idea what you're going to talk about for that meeting, they're going to be all over the place. They're going to talk about something that happened last week and something that happened when they were 10. So you're in control of keeping the wagons in a circle. I always record the session with a little bitty digital recorder that cost me $60, and I record the whole session. I go home, I transcribe that recording so that I have something to work with. That's the basic tool of what you're going to write. Ask them for any other memorabilia they might have. They might have diaries. They might have letters. They might have started to write and have something written already. They might have newspaper articles. When I was down in Cabo with the gentleman I wrote about, he had a wonderful magazine article that was about 4 pages long with beautiful colored photos. I gleaned a lot of information from that. So they are all valuable to help you tell the story. Now, you may need to research some of the background information. I'm working on something right now where we're writing about a war that happened 80 years ago. And, you know, we're going back a few generations. So to get a few details about that war, you might have to check on the internet and verify your facts. At the next session, now, I usually schedule weekly meetings with people. So at the next session, you've perhaps emailed them what you've written and they've looked it over. You have comments, they have comments, so you get that straightened out. And then you start recording your next session about the next part of picture a little bit. And their speech patterns, the way they would say something. Maybe they'd say, I would never say it that way. So, you know, you're going to have to make some changes. Ask for feedback. Don't, you know, we can all be polite and nice about everything, but unless they tell you how they feel, you won't know, and you won't be doing a good job for them. Revise the copy if necessary, and get additional feedback to make sure you're on the right track. as the project winds down, you've written all this stuff, it's all been approved, you've got all the text. Now they want usually to include photographs, and you never know what they're going to come up with. So it's always wise to say, could I sit with you and look at the photographs that you plan on including here? And you might say, you know, this really isn't, you have to always be nice about it, of course, and say, this might not be a good idea. This doesn't really fit in the context of the story. Why don't we rethink about using this or that photograph? So, here's your job. Your job is listening, interpreting what they're saying, manipulating the information into a readable narrative, and extrapolating what belongs in the narrative and eliminating what doesn't move the story forward. If there's a story that comes out of left field that might be cute, it might be sad, but if it doesn't fit into the flow of the story, either it has to be put in somewhere else, or maybe it can be eliminated. And here's the rules of the game. The first rule of the game is, it's not your book, it's their book. If it bothers you to give up the byline, the name on the cover, then don't go into ghostwriting, because most of the time, the people that I've written for have put my name on the cover somewhere. Sometimes it's in the acknowledgments, buried, which is fine. This is their story, not your story. That's why you're the ghost. All right, get it in writing. As I said, put a rough author-client agreement together outlining what you'll do and what you expect them to do in order to get the job done. This should be first, but I have a third here, get paid. The odds of anyone, and I've had people come to me and say, oh, you charge for this? Oh, well, I thought maybe, you know, after it starts selling, that I could give you a percentage of the profits. And I say, okay, there are thousands of books put out every year. The odds of this becoming a bestseller or you sitting on Oprah's couch are not good. So I get paid up front. If you end up making millions of dollars on this book, God bless you. So don't agree ever to write for a percentage of the profits. After you agree on a price, I collect the first third up front, the second third about halfway through, and the final payment when the client is happy with the result. Now, I had Joy ask me this question earlier. I told her I'd get to this. She said, why in the world would someone hire a ghostwriter? Why don't they just write it themselves? And I said, that's because you're sitting in a room full of writers. Most people are not at all confident about this, not at all. The client has a story to tell and they need a storyteller. They may be too busy, they may be not experienced, they may be completely not talented in the writing department, or disciplined enough to get the job done. I've had many people say, oh, I started writing, I have some stuff that I wrote 10 years ago, I think it's still in a drawer somewhere, I never finished, you know, kids are bugging me to get it done, that kind of thing. If they're not disciplined, this is the idea of the weekly meetings. You have to get your job done, and they have to get their job done. They have to read and comment and make it their business to move the story along. So, the ghost writer, otherwise known as the ghost, brings the story to life, makes the client accountable to that timetable, and gets the job done. It's estimated today, and this was a statistic I picked up doing a little research on the topic here, that 50% of the books in certain genres, mostly nonfiction, have some degree of ghosting. If the cover says as told to, if the cover says with, you can be sure there's a ghostwriter involved. And sometimes if you look in the acknowledgments. Now, the current memoir craze is driven by the self-publishing print-on-demand capabilities that we have today, which is great, because you could get one book printed, right? Or you can get thousands of books printed. Most of us want to start out with 50, 25, 100, you know, not, all of the printers, the self-publishers, when I started doing this, wanted at least 100, some of them wanted at least 200. So when my client came to me and said he wanted 25, I dug up someone in California who did limited runs. So the ones who print now on smaller batches, there's many out there. The biggest one, of course, is Amazon CreateSpace, and they also have, then your book is automatically on Amazon, which is a great of the business, is pricing the project. First of all, I hate this part, because when I first did it, I way underpriced myself, ended up working a lot more hours on this project than I expected. So that gave me, however, an idea of how long it took to get a book written of approximately 100 pages. And then I could figure out that if I wanted to make $20 or $25 an hour, I had to charge this much money in order to get that to happen. So set a price for a specific number of words and put that in your agreement. If the person wants about, this is about 100 page, all of these in fact are about 100 page books, 120, something like that, which ends up to be 25,000, maybe 30,000 words. So if they think it's going to be a lot thicker than that, like this one, which is probably a couple hundred pages, maybe more, then you have to figure that out and decide on how much you want to make per hour. And then you do the dreaded math. I give a price in my agreement for a 25 to 30,000 word book, and that's about 100 6x9 pages. And put that amount in my so-called agreement, specifying that if it goes over that, the price will increase accordingly, so that you're not locked into that smaller amount. Now, you have to understand here, what you're selling is your skill and your intellectual property. It's a mystery to the potential client. They have no idea how someone can do this. I don't know how to start. How do you do this? So they're kind of in awe of a writer who can get something done, which, you know, puts you kind of in a good place. So they don't, and then there are those who don't see what's so hard about it. You know, what's so hard about that? Well, you know, it was so easy, do it yourself. Don't say that. Don't be afraid to ask for a fair price. Your skills are worth it. If it was so easy, they would do it themselves. The reluctant prospect. Pretty much, you're going to run into the person who says, well, I have a friend who's an English teacher, and he or she has offered to write my book for nothing. So I say, do you want your book to sound like a exercise in a grammar class? And they usually say, well, no. And I say, well, you know, the English teacher who will do it for nothing, you're probably going to get exactly what you paid for. You want to deal with a writer, not an English teacher. Of course, an English teacher can be a writer too. You, on the other hand, you as the writer will present them with a readable, flowing narrative of their story. Now, the other thing they ask is, oh, you're charging this much money? Oh, well, isn't that kind of prideful to spend this kind of money on myself? Well, what's your purpose for writing this book? Do you want to tell your grandkids about your family story or your children? So your personal story, your personal tragedy, your family's personal tragedy or triumph is a legacy that's priceless. So you want it well written. And assure them that it will be fun, it will be a good, absorbing, rewarding project, but there's no guarantee of making money with this book. If they have an idea that they're going to put it on Amazon and try and sell it, great. You know, they might sell a few hundred copies. If it goes into the thousands, that would be unusual. Of course, it happens. Do it for the written family legacy, which is way beyond price. Now, I've talked so far about memoir writing and writing someone's life story. Is there any other way you can make a living as a ghostwriter? I have some friends who make a living doing this. They aren't writing memoirs, they're writing someone else's novel, they're writing someone else's blog, they're writing speeches, they're writing for corporate website content, and corporate and even neighborhood newsletters. There's opportunities out there. They're writing someone else's tweets. They're writing magazine articles and getting ghosting magazine articles. I have a couple book recommendations. Again, I think I'm going to start handouts around. Thank you, ma'am. This is called The Complete, and that's going to be on the handout, so you don't have to write it down. It's called The Complete Book of Ghostwriting, and it was interesting. It's an interesting book. Oh, sorry. That's okay. If you want to make a business out of this, this book is great. It's called Goodbye Byline, Hello Big Bucks. And this is one of the ladies I know who makes a living doing this. So I bought her book, and it has tons of good information. Let's see what else I have on here that you need to know about. Okay, ghostwriting is not editing. Ghostwriting is not reporting. It's not writing. It's pretending to be someone else. It's not you pretending to be someone else, but it's you channeling that person and writing their story. You don't originate it. You don't come up with the stories. They do. And you're not a psychological counselor. You know, if they need that, they have to go to someone else. So, however, what ghostwriting is you must know how to edit, you must know how to analyze and manipulate facts, craft beautiful prose, immerse yourself in the author's psyche, create out of nothing, advise, guide, encourage, and support. Ghostwriters should know, believe it or not, that publishers are desperate for quality authors. All of the blogs and corporate newsletters and other website content that I told you about, somebody's writing those, then they don't always have their name on it. The publishers can't afford to nurture writers anymore, and copy editors and proofreaders are not ghostwriters. Teachers aren't trained to tune into someone else's head. Critique groups, your critique group, we all depend on them, but they have no real frame of reference for the story that you're writing. Ghostwriting is closer to art than craftsmanship. All of this stuff above here, and the part I'm about to read, I took notes from a lady, and I think she was here at the Alabama Writers Forum a couple years back when it was here in Fair Hope, named Claudia Suzanne. I took notes, I found them, and I used them for my handout because they were correct, they were good advice. Ghostwriting rules: get paid up front. If you're a professional, you get paid by the project, and you're the authority that guides the project and keeps it on track. And never take a piece of the action. Make the client happy. Your best source of future jobs is a referral from a happy customer. And number 4 is, again, it's not your book. Never quote before you familiarize yourself with the job and the scope of the job and your client's expectations, and then get paid well. Those are notes taken at the seminar that I saw right here in that very room. So, the book recommendations are Goodbye Byline, Hello Big Bucks by Kelly James Anker, and The Complete Guide to Ghostwriting by Tina Lyons. Here are a number of online sources for writing jobs. the way you do this is you post your profile, and, you know, it takes you step by step through the process of signing up for one of these. And then you kind of have to follow up to see if there's any mail for you. Usually they email you, but sometimes you have to go in and check to see if anybody responded to your inquiry, to your application for the job. So here's a list of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different online sources for writing jobs. It takes a little time to sign up for these things and to follow up with them, but this is the way you're going to get your first job, unless you do have a personal referral. There are actually courses out there, which I found. One of them through Writer's Digest, which is an online course for $149.99. Not bad. The other one is a ghostwriting certification taught by this very lady who did our seminar here, which is almost $2,000. And she's in California, but it's an online course. And then the last page of my handout is the memoir proposal that I use for my clients. And that's just to give you an idea what mine looks like. You can come up with your own. You can actually consult an attorney. One friend of mine who ghostwrites for a living, she has about a 15-page contract that she gave $20,000 to write a book.
Wow.
Through one of these online websites, I got a little job doing some transcribing of a recorded session for a professional ghostwriter who writes memoirs for people. He charged upwards of $50,000 to write the story. So if you come in for $3,000, $5,000, $8,000 and someone's reluctant, well, you can throw those figures out at them. Let them do a little research and they'll find out it's a bargain. Yes, Suzanne?
I've had people ask me about transcription for them,
Yeah.
and I've said no because I'm not set up to do that. So I'm curious about how you handle that with I have, the same kind of
Little recorder.
digital recorder, and without, like a foot pedal to start, stop, or anything, I find that very difficult.
It's kind of a pain. I happen to be a pretty good typist because I used to work for a newspaper and that's what I did all day. So I just use the start and stop button, because you don't have a foot pedal with one of those little recorders.
Well, I upload mine to my computer, and then they, play them through Windows Media, and again, there's a start and stop button on the screen, but it's not very convenient.
See, I learn everything from other people. I didn't even know I could do that. But I'm going to find out. Yes, Linda.
Have you ever tried using any of the voice-to-text
Have you?
Well, a long time ago, and it was miserable.
Yes,
I've heard it's much
exactly.
better now.
Well,
So
I
that's
don't
why
know.
I asked.
I
I've
don't
heard
know.
it's much, much better.
Well, there are a lot
Oh, the question was, did I ever use the voice-to-text transcribing
speech
software?
recognition. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are frequently questions in the Word News group because you can use speech recognition to dictate to Word, and they say, can you use recorders to dictate to Word? And usually the answer is that doesn't work very well. So.
Yeah.
I've used Dragonfly.
Dragons.
Dragon speak?
Dragon.
Dragon dictate?
Yeah.
Dragons.
Dragon what?
That's the bar of it.
Dragon.
Dragon Speak 12.
Right.
Okay.
It seems to work very well.
Okay.
But
Dragon
from a
speak
recorder
12?
or from?
Yeah, no, you can plug it, the
Plug
recorder
the
right
recorder
in.
in there.
Really?
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay. That was, like I said, I'm a pretty good typist, so I just clatter away. Yes, Mike.
I found a lot of the smartphones, I have an iPhone, they have actually a recording system on there. You can just,
Yeah.
you can email it.
When I started this, I bought the little recorder, so that's what I'm still using. Yeah.
When somebody calls and says they want to do a project of this
Yes.
type, they're going to ask you what your fees typically be.
Oh, that's the first question.
Yeah.
What do you charge?
Well, then the next question's going to be, and once we have a manuscript, what will it cost to publish it?
That isn't the next question.
Oh,
But the first question is, or one of the first questions, well, how much do you charge? Oh, you're a ghostwriter? How much do you charge? Well, let's talk about your project, let's find out what you need, let's, and then you could, as I said, somewhere along the line, you have to have a test case so you can figure out how much per hour a few 500 words breaks down to, that kind of thing. The other question about what does it cost to have it published, I tell them during that first meeting, I only do the writing. It's up to you to get it published and formatted and everything else. If you know someone who can do that for you for nothing, great. Otherwise, all of those places that do self-publishing provide that service, but you pay for it. So, that, I can't quote them on that because, I don't know. If it's a 100-page book, it's what, about $3.50 a copy, $4 a copy, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've probably already discussed this question here several times, but I mean, so I just asked my question. Every person is different. As a ghostwriter, I understand in a way you almost have to self-efface yourself a little bit in order to do justice to the person that you have in front of you. And so for one person you have to write more technical, for another person perhaps more. How do you feel yourself? How do you come to the point that you basically eliminate yourself a little bit and pick up, so to say, and pick up the style of the person and what kind of training?
That's the reason for the face-to-face meetings. You get to know this person a little bit. You know what their speech patterns are, and you kind of know how they talk.
And when do you know that you have succeeded? Do you just
Well,
feel
the very first time you give them something you've written, and they say, that doesn't sound like me at all, or, yeah, this is fine, this is good, so.
Or this is the way I would like to sound.
Yeah, maybe, if I'm lucky, yes.
How do you keep from getting stuck in an endless revision loop? Do you, once they say,
I think that's part of
do you
I don't know, I haven't
get
looked at
them to
it
sign, do you explain to them that?
I
once-
said it includes, I think it includes one revision. If it doesn't, it should. Reviewing the draft copy and making changes in a timely manner? No, that's their copy, that's their, okay. I thought I had it in there, I don't. I think I'll go home and rewrite it.
Well, see, that's my
Yes, it
point.
includes one revision, one going through it again and making your changes. Yeah,
But you
don't, if
shouldn't
they want any more after that, they're gonna have to.
Well, considering the age range of some of the people that you're working with, wouldn't it be prudent to say, once we have gone through one thorough revision of a chapter and you sign off, that's it? Are you willing to go back and keep revising if they forget? Or they remember something they forgot to tell you?
After the second go round, if there's any additional charges, or if there's any additional stuff, you're gonna charge them for it, and that would usually slow them down a lot.
Okay, well, see, that's my point, because you're talking about that you're charging per word. Well, if you counted every time you rewrote it,
Yeah, no, I don't. I charge them one time for that
for a
much
finished,
of a book.
for a finished number of
Right.
words. Okay, because I can see where that would take up an enormous amount of your time, and you'd be working for practically nothing.
Right.
If you didn't limit the number of
Yeah,
times.
I
you
did think it was an agreement. I better go home and rewrite it. Obviously, I've done this. Obviously, I'm not an expert on this by any means. This, and in fact, the answer to your question is probably in this book.
Okay.
If you want to make a business out of it, I really recommend this book. So, any more questions?
Where do we find the book?
It's on Amazon, and Paige and Pal would be happy to order it for you, I bet you.
That's right.
Under today's circumstances with what you told us, my
You might
goodness.
say $3 going to Amazon, but remember, you're supporting, I
Local
think,
business,
this
right.
real important store in town.
Yeah, John.
What do you consider yourself, an editor or a ghostwriter or?
It depends on what hat I have on that day, you know.
Ah.
Yeah, I mean, there are some jobs, like this guy who wanted me to edit his story. He wrote the whole thing, but it was not well written. And I went through it and rewrote it for him. So, and put things in order, and it was kind of all over the place, so. Yes.
What kind of a life merits a book like this, really? It's
Well,
like
you
sitting
know
one for
what?
a memoir of me, I'd say forget it.
Yeah, well, that's one of the other objections I should have put in there. People say, oh, I never did anything.
Yeah.
And that's so wrong. It's just wrong. And your story might not be of great interest to the general public, but you can be darn sure it's of interest to your family.
You know, one of the things that I thought about in the memoir writing business is, what if I had a memoir from my great-great-grandfather
Yeah.
telling me about his life and what he did? I would cherish it.
Yes,
So
of course.
why wouldn't our great-great-grandchildren feel the
Exactly.
same way?
Same thing.
That's chapter
So
and
every
verse
life-
from my memoir
every
writing
life is
workshop.
important. Oh,
you
is that
know.
right?
Yeah, to get people going, to get people motivated. This is not for you, you're writing it. It's for people you don't even know yet.
Yeah. So every life is interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, some obviously more than others. You know, some of these stories I've done have been lives of tragedy and terrible things happening to these people, but they thought they could help someone else by writing it. This story is just a sweet story of a local lady who was a great community asset and just a great person, and she is since deceased, so, you know, it's precious to her family. So, yeah.
And I can guarantee you that your children will not read it, except possibly after you're dead, but your grandchildren will be
Right.
interested.
Exactly.
And,
Your children will read it and say, never happened that way. That didn't happen.
oh, my mother suffered from having me edit her.
Some of the first ghostwriters, Emily Dickinson, she stuffed all her poems and everything in a drawer. She never got published until her brother went to her house and got all that stuff.
Yeah, but he didn't rewrite it, he just found her stuff.
And didn't publish it then.
Right.
No.
PT.
I just want to address this question, and that is that I did not realize the impact that my writing would have on members of my family until my thesis was published, which contained autobiographical material, stories. And there were stories about my family that I didn't think anything about writing. It was simply my life. And I had my nieces and nephews come to me and say, I learned more about my family from reading your stories than from all the stories they ever told me, because I put it in context. I was writing about my life in a certain place and time and what happened to me and the other people's in my life. So what you're doing is you're fleshing out anecdotes, you're fleshing out the statistics of birth and death and, you know, in marriages. So every life is worth writing about because it fleshes out just the vital statistics that you're left with when people are gone.
Right. I learned a lot about my family from my aunt who wrote her story before she died, and I hardly knew her. So, because I have that, that's the main start of what I know about my mother's family at an early age. Mavis.
Teresa, did you have a question?
No, I was just gonna say that, I wrote a story, about the end of my mother's life, which was just a remarkable, the whole thing's a remarkable story. And the people that, in my family, that have read it have thanked me, you know, because they want that story to pass on, because it's an amazing story.
So does that answer your question?
Great.
Okay. Doc.
I'm writing a memoir now,
Right.
and how I got started was I'm a product of the 60s.
Oh, yeah.
Or I should say I was a survivor of the 60s. And I was telling you about going to Woodstock.
Oh, gosh.
And
Did you go to Woodstock?
I did. And I survived that.
Yeah.
But that's how I got started, was the fact that I was a product of the 60s, and went to Woodstock and all this, and somebody said, why don't you put that down?
Really?
And that's why, that's what I started.
And you're one of the few who can remember it.
I know, that's what I mean.
He still remembers it, write it down.
Write about it. I want to know how much your book is that you're in, the Fairhope.
Oh, the Fairhope, the original Fairhope guidebook is $10. We're selling it for $10.
Okay. I want
And
one.
they have it at the bookstore.
They have it at the bookstore.
We have to get it at the bookstore, we can't buy it here.
Either way. This is my book about memoir writing, which is also $10, if anybody is interested in that. And